We've already talked a lot about the rules of the UFC, so you should know how the organization works by now. There are rules about illegal moves, weight, and drugs. All of these rules are important because they keep the game fair and honorable. So, in a perfect world, every fighter would follow the rules and no one would cheat. But that's not how it is it? There have been a lot of cheaters in the UFC over the years. Some of them ended careers, and some of them led to big but they were all big stories that show how important rules are and how cheaters are not welcome in any sport. In today's video, we'll show you some of the UFC's most famous and well-known cheating scandals. Former UFC light heavyweight and heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier may be the most well-known fighter who seems to have cheated to make weight. DC is known as one of MMA's good guys, but when he weighed in for his title defense against Anthony Johnson in 2017, he caused a stir. Cormier was clearly struggling to reach the light heavyweight limit of 205 pounds. On his first try, he missed the mark, so he went back to the scales right away for a second try. This time, the champion took off his clothes and stood behind a towel. Sure enough, it was announced seconds later that he had hit 205 on the button. But a lot of fans weren't convinced, and some said Cormier pushed down on the towel with his hands to trick the scale into thinking he was lighter. The incident was called Towelgate right away. Not surprisingly, Cormier denied the claims at the time, but now that 5 years have passed, the legend decided to tell the truth when he was inducted into the UFC's Hall of Fame. When Dutch fighter Alistair Overeem beat the legendary Brock Lesnar in his first UFC match, it was a big deal. That amazing win got him a spot on the main card at UFC 146, where he was supposed to fight Junior Dos Santos for the heavyweight champion title. Everything was great until the Nevada State Athletic Commission said that Overeem had failed a pre-match test because his ratio of testosterone to epitestosterone was a crazy 14:1. Overeem lost his spot at UFC 146 and was banned for a solid 9 months because of this.
And even the possibility of fighting for the UFC, I mean, I'm always a guy looking up, looking further. That's my ultimate goal, to become UFC champion.
This was a big deal because the fight between Overeem and Dos Santos was supposed to be the night's main event. White quickly replaced Overeem with Frank Mir, but this is still one of the biggest cheating scandals in UFC history.
I'm going to tell you something, there's always going to be people who are like you, and there's always going to be people who don't like you.
Next, we have Nick Diaz. This guy is so stupid that he should have his own video. This is an obvious choice, maybe the most obvious choice on this list. He has missed media events, missed fights, had problems inside and outside of the cage, and failed so many drug tests that it would take too long to list them all. Diaz is definitely one of the most controversial people in the UFC, but his bad reputation wouldn't be such a big deal if he hadn't been caught cheating and taking illegal drugs so many times. So, without being able to point to a specific we can only say that whenever the name Diaz comes up, you can only hope there won't be a like Nate Diaz. This person deserves his own article, but for very different reasons. Diaz is because he is a no-brainer who likes to stir things up.
And I got some dude out front of my house looking for cigarette butts or something from, where some friends might have left some,
But Rousimar Palhares is just a cheater. During his short time in the UFC, he broke a lot of rules. He is known as possibly the biggest cheater in UFC history. Although he had a substance-related issue, he is most famous for breaking the rules of conduct, being too savage, and refusing to listen to the referees when it comes to interrupting submissions and acknowledging tappings. Palhares refused to apologize each time he was fined, punished, or reprimanded, even though his actions could have put lives at risk. Because of this, he was kicked out of the UFC for good in 2015, fined, and had his belt taken away. We also have Anderson Silva. The legendary Brazilian had a lot of fame in the UFC, but a doping scandal ruined his career. This was not only because he was using illegal drugs, but also because he was so stupid. Silva was the UFC champion for a long time and had never lost a fight. At one point, he lost several fights in a row and was in a tough spot. No matter what he did, he couldn't get the title back, but his reputation was still pretty good. The stupid thing then happened. The NSAC said that Silva had tested positive for steroids. He decided to talk to the NSAC about the case, but he made up a stupid story that the NSAC tore to pieces when they saw that his timeline was wrong. Silva told the committee that he had taken Viagra from Thailand claimed that he didn't know had something illegal in it. The story was completely made up, and Silva was stupid to try to hide the fact that he had cheated, which ruined his reputation completely.
I put in my life, all my life, stay inside when I stay in the cage, because I respect everybody here.
Silva is one of those people who never seems to get a break. He's always on bad list, always in the middle of and often in trouble with the law. I mean, he's involved in some pretty bad illegal things, so who can blame the police? But hey, who are we to judge? Silva lost his UFC contract, his reputation, and a chance to win the heavyweight championship title because of problems with the law. Since then, his already falling career went even further downhill when he failed a US ADA test. Because of this, he was fined $33,750 and banned for a year. Silva was punished, but not for using illegal drugs. Instead, he was punished for giving the commission a fake sample. So maybe he wasn't on anything, you know? We'll find out, but we already know that he should be on our list of UFC cheaters.
Yeah. And maybe the supplements I using is contaminated. I don't know. I just waiting, you know.
Vanderlei Silva is another Brazilian on our list. He is well known for his aggressive fighting and very unusual fighting style. Silva is well known for taking illegal drugs, and he is one of the few fighters who made a living by getting high, which made them more aggressive. The problem started when the UFC decided to stop fighters like Silva from using illegal drugs. This put an end to their careers. During one fight, Silva made it clear that he didn't want to take a drug test, which cost him his career and his reputation. His time in the UFC was over for good. The strict NSAC fined Silva $70,000, which is a lot of money, and eventually gave him a lifetime ban, which, as was said, ended his UFC career. It is absolutely necessary to punish this kind of behavior and get rid of cheaters.
Some things is jokes, guys. No, all things is right, straight. No, some things is jokes. No, he's a joker, guy. He's fun, like a call, no, like a.
Finally, Jon Jones. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, legendary UFC champion Jon Jones is also on our list of UFC cheaters. Jones is a strong presence in the UFC and one of its most famous champions, but his career was hurt by two drug-related incidents that almost ruined his reputation and slowed down and almost ended his whole career. The first thing that happened cost him his light heavyweight title. After UFC 182, it was revealed that he had tested positive for cocaine. He was out of the octagon for a whole year because of an accident that happened soon after. After he came back, he won the interim title, but he lost that too when he failed another drug test. He lost his title and was banned for another year. He also had to pay a fine. Just think about what 2 years can do to a UFC career. These are just the few to be caught cheating in the UFC.